The spaceport of Kalar Station was always loud. Ships from many worlds landed and left every hour. Engines roared. Screens flashed job offers in dozens of languages. The air smelled of metal, fuel, and too many different species living too close together. Among the crowd stood an alien female named Sarah. She was tall but thin. One of her arms ended above the elbow, replaced by an old metal joint that no longer worked. One of her eyes was covered by a dull gray patch. Old scars crossed her face and neck. She wore simple clothing, clean but clearly repaired many times. Beside her stood a small child, holding her remaining hand. The child, Lyra, had wide eyes and soft skin. She looked up at the moving ships with quiet wonder, unaware of how heavy her mother's heart felt. Saira shifted her weight as another employer passed her by. The employer was a thick-scaled alien with 4 eyes. He glanced at Sarah, then at her missing arm, then at the child. His eyes narrowed. Without a word, he turned away. Sarah did not react. She had learned not to. This was the 12th rejection that day. Around her, other workers were being chosen. Strong-backed miners, fast-moving loaders, clean, unscarred technicians. Many of them avoided looking at her. Some whispered. Some stared openly. Broken, one muttered in a clicking language. Too slow, another said. Has a child, someone else added. Liability. Sarah lowered her head slightly, focusing on Lyra's grip on her hand. As long as her child was calm, she could endure anything. She stepped forward to the next hiring terminal when her turn came. A floating screen scanned her body. Physical capability, below standard. Combat rating, irrelevant. Medical risk, high. Dependent present, yes. The screen flashed red. Application denied, the machine said in a flat voice. Sierra nodded once and stepped aside. She had expected it. She moved to a bench near the wall, away from the main flow of traffic. Lyra climbed onto the bench and leaned against her side. Did we get work? Lyra asked softly. Syra forced a gentle smile.
Not yet. Lyra nodded and rested her head against Syra's waist. That's okay.
We can wait. Syra closed her eye for a moment. Waiting was all they had done for months. She remembered a time when things were different, when she had 2 arms, when her people wore armor instead of patched cloth, when her name carried honor. That time was gone. The war had taken it. The fire, the falling cities, the screams. She shook the memories away. The past did not buy food. Syra checked her remaining credits. Not enough for another week of station housing. Not enough for medicine if Lyra got sick. She looked back at the hiring area. Only a few employers remained. One by one, they finished and left. Soon, there would be nothing. A group of aliens passed by, laughing loudly. One of them pointed at Sayara's metal joint and made a cruel joke. Another laughed harder. Sayara turned slightly, placing herself between them and Lyra. She had learned how to stand like that, protective, quiet, unthreatening. The laughter faded as they moved on. When the hall grew less crowded, Sayara stood again. She guided Lyra toward the final terminal. The sign above it flickered, half broken. Independent contractor. Human Sayara hesitated. Humans were rare this far out. She had heard stories. Some said humans were kind. Others said they were dangerous in strange ways. Unpredictable. She had no room left for fear. She approached. A human male stood near the terminal, reviewing a datapad. He wore simple work clothes, worn but clean. No visible weapons. His hair was dark and slightly messy. His face showed lines of tiredness, but his eyes were alert. He looked up when Sayara stopped in front of him. For a moment, he said nothing. Sayara waited for the usual reaction, the glance at her arm, the quick judgment, the dismissal. Instead, the human looked at her face, then at Lyra, then back to her. "Looking for work?" he asked. His voice was calm. Neutral. Yes, Sarah replied. Her voice was low but steady.
Any work. I can clean.
Carry light cargo. Organize storage. I learned quickly. The human nodded slowly. What's your name? She hesitated. Names carried weight among her people, but here it no longer mattered. Syra, she said. And this is my daughter, Lyra. The human crouched slightly so he was closer to Lyra's height. He did not touch her. Hey there, he said. I'm Jonah. Lyra peeked out from behind Syra's leg. Hello, she whispered. Jonah smiled gently and stood again. He glanced at the terminal screen, which had already scanned Sarah. It flashed warnings. Injury, severe. Productivity, reduced. Risk factor, high. Jonah frowned, not at Sarah, but at the screen. He tapped a few commands and shut it off. Sarah's heart beat faster. I understand if you cannot... I haven't decided yet, Jonah said. Tell me something. Those injuries. How old are they? Sarah blinked. This was not a question she usually heard. Many cycles, she answered. From war. Jonah studied her metal joint. Combat? Evacuation, she said. Civilians. He nodded again. And the child? She has no one else. Jonah was quiet for a few seconds. The spaceport noise filled the gap. Finally he said, I need someone for maintenance and sorting work at my cargo yard.
It's not heavy lifting. More, keeping things from falling apart.
Sarah felt a fragile hope rise and forced it back down. I can do that, she said. I will not fail. Jonah looked at her remaining eye. I don't doubt that, but there's something you should know. Sarah braced herself. My operation isn't fancy, he continued. Long hours sometimes, and I don't have a separate childcare unit. Sayira's shoulders tensed. Lyra is quiet. She will not interfere. Jonah shook his head. That's not what I mean.
I mean she'll be around.
Where you are. Sarah stared at him. You allow that? I don't see why not, he said, as long as she's safe. Sayara's breath caught. She struggled to keep her voice steady. You would hire me? Jonah shrugged slightly. I need someone who won't quit when things get hard. Someone who shows up. He glanced around the hall, where no one else was watching them now. And frankly, he added, everyone else here seems to be blind. Sayara stood very still. For the first time in a long while, she did not know what to say. Yes, she finally said, I will work. I swear it. Jonah smiled. Good. Then, let's make it official. He handed her a simple contract. Fair pay. Regular hours. Medical access through human networks. Temporary housing attached to the yard. Sayria read it twice to be sure it was real. Lyra tugged gently on her clothing. Mama? Syra knelt and held her daughter's face. Her voice trembled despite her effort. We have work. Lyra's eyes widened. Really? Yes. Lyra smiled, a bright open smile that Sayra had not seen in too long. Jonah turned away slightly, pretending to focus on his pad. When they finished, he gestured toward the exit. My transport's this way. As they walked, Sayria felt the weight on her chest ease just a little. She did not know why this human had chosen her. She did not know how long the peace would last, but for the first time since the war ended, someone had looked at her and seen more than what she had lost. And that was enough to take the next step forward. The cargo yard was quieter than the spaceport, but it was never truly silent. Metal crates rested in tall stacks. Automated lifters moved slowly along marked paths. Distant engines hummed like low thunder. The air smelled of oil and dust. Sarah stood near the entrance, holding Lyra's hand. This place was Jonah's operation. It was not large. A few storage buildings, one repair bay, a small living unit attached to the far side, made from joined metal modules. Everything looked used, repaired many times, but carefully maintained. Jonah walked ahead of them. That building is storage.
This one is sorting and repair. We don't rush here.
Rushing breaks things. Sierra listened closely, memorizing every detail. I'll show you your room first, Jonah said. Then we'll talk work. The living unit was simple but clean. 2 small beds, a table, a food heater, a water unit that actually worked properly. There was even a small window. Lyra stepped inside and gasped softly.
Mama, it's just for us? Sarah swallowed.
Yes. Jonah set down a data pad on the table. Food credits refresh weekly. Medical unit is shared but available any time. If there's a problem, you tell me. Syra bowed her head slightly. Thank you. Jonah waved it off. You start tomorrow. Today, just rest.
You both look like you need it. When Jonah left, Sarah closed the door slowly.
She leaned against it and let herself breathe. Lyra climbed onto the bed and bounced once, laughing. Syra watched her, feeling something unfamiliar and fragile in her chest. Hope scared her more than fear had. The next morning, Syra woke before the lights brightened. She dressed quietly and prepared Lyra's simple meal. Lyra ate happily, swinging her legs. Will you work today? Lyra asked. Yes, Syra said. But you stay close.
I will help, Lyra said seriously. Sayera smiled.
Your help is staying safe. They stepped outside together. Jonah was already working, checking a shipment list.
He looked up and nodded. Morning. Sayera nodded back.
I am ready.
He handed her gloves and a light tool belt. We start with sorting, color codes, symbols. You can use one hand just fine for this.
Sarah studied the crates carefully.
Each one had markings, some faded, some new. She worked slowly at first, making sure she understood. Jonah watched from a distance but did not interrupt. Within an hour, Sarah found a rhythm. She moved carefully, using her body weight to shift smaller crates, using hooks and levers instead of strength. She kept Lyra seated nearby with a small tablet Jonah had provided. Lyra watched quietly, occasionally humming to herself. By midday, Syera had reorganized an entire section. Jonah walked over, scanning the area. You worked in logistics before. It was not a question. Syera hesitated. Long ago. He nodded. Still counts. Other workers from nearby yards began to notice. They slowed when passing, looked twice. Some whispered, "That's the injured one. She has a child? A human hired her?" Soraya heard them but did not react. Her focus stayed on the crates, the labels, the work. At one point, a crate slipped from a lifter and tilted dangerously. Syera reacted without thinking. She moved fast, braced it with her shoulder, and used her remaining arm to pull the stabilizer lever. The crate settled safely. Jonah had seen it. He walked over. "You okay?" "Yes," Sarah said. "No damage." He looked at the crate, then at her. Good instincts. That night, Syra's muscles ached, but it was a good pain. Earned pain. Lyra fell asleep quickly, holding a small toy Jonah had given her. Sarah sat at the table, reviewing the next day's schedule. She did not notice Jonah standing at the door until he cleared his throat. "You did well today," he said. "Thank you." He hesitated. Some people might cause trouble. "Ignore them. If anyone crosses a line, tell me." Syra met his eyes. "I can handle words." "I know," Jonah said, "but you shouldn't have to." After he left, Syra stared at the closed door for a long time. No one had said that to her before. Days passed. Sarah worked every day, sorting, repairing small tools, keeping records. She made herself useful in quiet ways. She fixed small problems before they became large ones. Jonah noticed. So did others. A nearby alien worker mocked her once, calling her half-thing. Jonah banned him from the yard without raising his voice. Word spread. Some aliens avoided the area. Others watched more carefully. One afternoon, A human transport pilot stopped by and saw Lyra playing near the office. He frowned. "That's safe," Jonah replied calmly. "Safer than most stations." The pilot shrugged. "Fair enough." Sayra overheard the exchange and felt a strange warmth. One evening, as Sayara organized records, Jonah asked casually, "You ever think about leaving the station?" Sayara paused. "I stopped thinking about the future a long time ago." Jonah nodded slowly. "You don't have to answer. Just curious." Later that night, Sayra dreamed of fire again, but this time, the fire did not reach her. A week after she arrived, trouble finally came. A large alien male from a rival yard stormed into Jonah's space without permission. His species was known for physical strength and short tempers. "You hired broken labor," he growled. "It lowers standards." Jonah stood firm. "My yard, my rules." The alien sneered at Sayra. "She'll slow you down?" Sayra stepped forward before Jonah could speak. "I have increased efficiency by 12%, she said calmly. "Records are open." The alien laughed. With one arm, Sayra met his gaze. "Yes," the alien turned to Jonah. "You'll regret this." Jonah did not flinch. "Get off my property!" The alien left, but not before throwing one last look at Sayra, one filled with promise, not fear. That night, Jonah increased security protocols. Sayra noticed. "Is there danger?" she asked quietly. Jonah considered lying. He chose not to. "Possibly," he said, "but I won't let anything happen to you or your kid." Sayra nodded. "I believe you." That surprised both of them. As days turned into weeks, Sayra found herself standing straighter. Lyra laughed more, slept better, ate better. Others still stared, but some stared with curiosity now, not disgust. One alien worker even asked Sayra how she stabilized crates with one arm. She showed him. Change came slowly, but it came. Late one evening, Sayra stood outside the living unit, watching ships rise into the stars. Lyra slept inside. Jonah joined her, keeping a respectful distance. "You know," he said, "humans have a saying. You don't judge a tool by how shiny it is. You judge it by what it can do." Sayra looked at the stars. "My people had a saying too. Those who survive are meant to protect." Jonah glanced at her. "Sounds about right." Neither of them noticed the distant ship adjusting its orbit slightly, watching the yard, marking it, preparing for something yet to come. The warning came quietly, the way real danger often did. It began with small things, a shipment delayed for no clear reason, a navigation beacon near the cargo yard going offline for a few minutes, then returning as if nothing had happened, a security drone that failed to report once, then worked normally again. Jonah noticed. Sayra noticed too. She had learned long ago that trouble rarely announced itself loudly. She was reviewing inventory logs late one evening when she saw a pattern. 3 crates marked as low priority had been scanned twice at different times, from 2 different locations. That should not have been possible. She double-checked, then checked again. Her remaining eye narrowed slightly. Jonah was in the repair bay, working on a lifter arm. Sayra approached quietly. "There is something wrong," she said. Jonah wiped his hands and turned. "Talk to me." She showed him the data. He studied it, jaw tightening. "Someone's mapping the yard," he said. "Testing blind spots." "Yes," Sayra agreed. "Not random." Jonah exhaled slowly. "I'll boost security tonight." Sayra hesitated.
They may already know more than you think.
Jonah looked at her carefully. "You've seen this before." She did not answer right away. Instead, she looked past him, through the open bay doors, to where Lyra sat inside the living unit, drawing shapes on her tablet. "Yes," Sayra said at last. "I have." That night, Sayra did not sleep. She sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the soft hum of station systems. Every sound felt too loud. Every pause felt wrong. Memories pressed close. She remembered the city alarms that failed, the soldiers who said everything was under control, the way the sky changed color when the first orbital strike hit. She stood quietly and checked the locks. Then she checked them again. The next morning, Jonah called a meeting. It was small, just him, Sarah, and 2 human workers who helped part-time. He spoke plainly. "Someone's watching us," he said. "Might be intimidation. Might be more. Either way, we stay alert." One of the humans nodded. The other frowned. "Because of the alien mother?" Jonah did not raise his voice. "Because someone thinks they can push us." Sayara appreciated that answer. The day passed without incident, but the air felt heavy. In the afternoon, a sleek ship docked nearby. Unmarked, dark hull, military-grade engines disguised as civilian. Sayira noticed it immediately. Her body reacted before her thoughts did. Her spine straightened. Her breathing slowed. She knew that design. Jonah followed her gaze. "Problem? That ship?" she said quietly. "It belongs to the Keth Syndicate." Jonah blinked. "That sounds bad." "They were not always a syndicate," Sarah said. "Once, they were generals." Jonah looked at her more closely now. "Sayra, who were you before the war?" She closed her eye. "I was a quartermaster," she said. "Logistics and evacuation planning. I moved people out of cities before they fell." Jonah waited. "My species was known for strength and endurance," she continued. "So when the war turned against us, they used us as shields, as labor, as disposable soldiers." Her voice remained calm, but her hand tightened slightly. "I refused," she said. "I used supply routes to move civilians instead of weapons. Children, elderly, the injured." Jonah's expression darkened. "When they discovered this," Sarah said, "they made an example of me." Jonah said nothing. "They took my arm," she went on. "They took my eye. They burned my rank from the records. Then they left me alive so others would remember." Jonah swallowed. "And now they're here." "Yes," Sarah said, "because someone recognized me." As if summoned by her words, 3 figures approached the yard entrance. They were tall, armored, moving with confidence. Keth enforcers. Their armor bore no official markings, but Sayira knew every line of it. Jonah stepped forward, positioning himself between them and Sayira. "This is private property," he said. "State your business." The lead enforcer's helmet shifted slightly as sensors focused. "We are here for the one called Sarah," the enforcer said. "She belongs to us." Jonah did not move. "She works for me," the enforcer laughed. "She is stolen property." Sarah stepped forward. "No," she said. "I am a survivor." The enforcer turned toward her. "You were ordered to die quietly. Instead, you hid." "I protected civilians," Sayara replied, "including my child." The enforcer tilted his head. "Your child will be reassigned." Jonah's hand clenched. "That's not happening," he said flatly. The enforcer looked at Jonah, as if noticing him for the first time. "Human?"
"This does not concern you." Jonah met the gaze without fear.
"Everything that happens on my land concerns me." For a long moment, no one moved. Then the enforcer stepped back. "Very well," he said. "We will return." The 3 turned and left. Jonah released a breath he had been holding. Sayara felt cold. "They will not stop," she said. "They never do." Jonah nodded. "Then we prepare." That night, Jonah made calls. Not to authorities he knew better, but to other humans, independent operators, old friends, people who owed favors. Humans answered. They always did. Within 2 days, the yard changed. Extra lights were installed. Sensors recalibrated. Drones upgraded with human-made software that behaved unpredictably. Jonah brought in portable shields, small but powerful. Sarah helped plan. She marked approach angles, predicted tactics, suggested choke points. Jonah watched her work with a mix of respect and anger, not at her, but at what had been done to her.
You're good at this, he said quietly.
I wish I were not, she replied. On the third night, the attack came. Not loud, not dramatic. A power fluctuation, a sensor blackout. Then movement, fast and coordinated. Keth enforcers breached the outer fence. Alarms flared. Lyra woke screaming. Sayara was moving before the sound fully reached her. She grabbed Lyra, pulled her into the reinforced storage room, and sealed the door. Stay here, Sayara said, kneeling. No matter what. Lyra's eyes were wide. Mama? Sayara pressed her forehead gently to Lyra's. I will come back. Then she stood and turned. Jonah was already engaging security controls, directing drones, locking down zones. They're pushing hard, he said. Too hard for a simple grab. They want to erase me, Sayara said, and make a message. Jonah looked at her. Then we make our own. The Keth breached the repair bay. Sayara did not hesitate. She picked up a heavy metal bar, not as a weapon, but as a tool. She used leverage, momentum, angles. She struck joints, destabilized armor, pulled enemies into narrow spaces where their strength meant less. She moved like someone who had learned to fight without relying on wholeness. Jonah watched her in stunned silence as she disabled an enforcer twice her size using a single precise motion. You said you were a quartermaster? He shouted. I learned many things, she replied. Together, they held the line. Human tech and alien experience meshed perfectly. The Keth retreated, not defeated, but slowed. Before leaving, one enforcer turned back. This is not over, he said. Sayara stood tall. It never is. When the yard finally fell quiet, Sayara's legs shook. Jonah approached. You hurt? She checked herself. No, he nodded.
Good, because this changes things. Yes, she agreed.
Now they know you will not abandon me. Jonah looked toward the storage room where Lyra waited. They should have known that already, he said. In the distance, the unmarked ship pulled away, but not far. The galaxy had noticed, and it was paying attention now. The morning after the attack felt strange. The cargo yard still stood. The buildings were damaged but intact. Burn marks stained the metal floor. A few drones lay broken, their lights dark. But the sun of the station rose as usual, casting pale light over everything. Sayara stood near the repair bay, watching human workers replace panels and reconnect cables. Lyra sat nearby, wrapped in a blanket, holding a warm drink Jonah had prepared for her. The child had not spoken much since the night before. Jonah moved from worker to worker, giving instructions. He looked tired, but focused. When he reached Sayara, he stopped. They pulled back faster than expected, he said.
They tested you, Sayara replied. Now they know you will resist.
Jonah nodded. And that means next time won't be small. Sayara did not look away. Then next time, we are ready. Jonah studied her face. You're staying. It was not a question.
Yes?
Sayara said. Running would only move the danger. Jonah exhaled slowly. Then I'm calling in more people. By midday, ships began to arrive. Not military vessels, not official patrols, independent human ships. Cargo runners, salvage crews, mechanics, old soldiers who now lived quiet lives but still answered calls like this. They did not ask many questions. They saw the damage. They saw Sayara and Lyra, and they stayed. Temporary defenses went up around the yard. Portable shield units hummed softly. Sensor nets overlapped in unpredictable patterns. Human tech was not elegant, but it was clever. It adapted. Sayara helped coordinate. She spoke little, but when she did, people listened. She's the reason they came, one human whispered to another. Then she's the reason we stand, the other replied. Word spread fast through the station. The Keth Syndicate had attacked a human-run yard. They had failed. That alone was unusual. But what truly drew attention was who the humans were protecting: an injured alien mother, a child. Other species watched closely. Some were confused, some were curious, some were afraid. The Keth did not like being watched. 2 days later, they returned. This time, they did not sneak. Their ships dropped out of orbit openly, heavy, armed. Broadcasting authority they no longer truly had. A message went out across the local channel. Return the asset, called Sarah. This matter does not concern you. Jonah stood in the yard, listening to the message play from a floating speaker. Humans gathered behind him. Some held tools. Some held weapons. Some simply stood. Sayara stood at Jonah's side. It concerns us, Jonah said calmly into the channel. You attacked our home. You shelter a traitor, the Keth replied. Sayara stepped forward. I sheltered civilians, she said. If that makes me a traitor, then I accept the title. Silence followed. Then the Keth responded. You will surrender, or we will take you.
You don't owe us anything.
Sayara met his gaze. You gave my child safety.
I owe you everything.
Jonah turned back to the channel.
Then you'll have to go through us. The Keth ships moved. Not toward the yard.
Toward the station's outer ring, they intended to pressure everyone. Sayara's heart tightened.
They will hurt others.
Jonah's jaw clenched. Not if we move first. Human ships launched. They were fewer, smaller, but they moved fast, spreading out, confusing targeting systems. Human pilots talked constantly, sharing information, adjusting plans in real time. Sarah watched the tactical feed. They are forcing the Keth to split attention, she said. Good. Jonah nodded. Humans don't like bullies. The first shots were fired in space, far above the yard. Defensive bursts, warning strikes, no full weapons yet. The Keth hesitated. They had expected fear. Instead, they found resistance. On the ground, station authorities finally appeared. Slow, cautious, unwilling to choose a side. They set up barriers and tried to keep civilians away. Sayara moved through the chaos, guiding Lyra into the safest shelter area with other children. Some parents looked at her with fear at first. Then they saw how gently she spoke, how firmly she stood. They let her help. You stay with the others, Sarah told Lyra. I will come back. Lyra nodded, trusting her completely. Sarah turned back toward the yard. Another message arrived. This is your final warning, the Keth said. Stand aside. Jonah replied without hesitation.
No, the Keth attacked, not the station.
The yard. Heavy units dropped fast, smashing through shields with brute force. Enforcers poured out, armed and disciplined. Humans met them head-on. It was not a clean fight. It was messy, loud, confusing. But humans fought like they lived. Together, they covered each other, dragged the wounded to safety, used the environment creatively. Cranes became barriers. Cargo lifters became moving shields. Smoke filled the air. Sarah moved through it all with purpose. She did not seek combat, but she did not avoid it either. She disabled weapons, closed doors, redirected attackers into traps she had planned days earlier. At one point, she found herself face to face with a Keth commander. You should have died quietly, he said. Sarah's voice was steady. I chose to live loudly. She struck, using leverage and timing. The commander fell, stunned and restrained. Around them, the Keith advance slowed. In orbit, human ships managed to force 2 Keith vessels to retreat after disabling their sensors. The balance shifted. The station authorities could no longer pretend this was a private matter. They broadcast an order. All unauthorized forces withdraw.
This station is under neutral protection. The Keth hesitated again.
They were used to fear, to compliance. They were not used to humans. After a long, tense pause, the Keth ships pulled back, not defeated, but denied. The yard fell quiet once more. Smoke drifted away. Emergency lights dimmed. Humans checked on one another. Some laughed shakily. Some sat down, exhausted. Syra stood still, feeling the weight finally lift from her shoulders. Jonah approached her, his face smudged with soot. "You okay?" "Yes," she said. "You?" "Still breathing," he replied. "I'll take it." Station officials arrived shortly after, formal and careful. They looked at the damage, at the humans. At Sayara, one official cleared his throat. "The Keth have filed a claim." Jonah crossed his arms. "Let them." The official hesitated. "They claim ownership of the alien Sayara." Sayara stepped forward. "They erased my citizenship. They stripped my rank. They declared me dead." She met the official's eyes. "You cannot own what you tried to erase." The official looked uncertain. Then he looked at the humans around them, at the ships still circling overhead, at the children sheltering together. "We will review the matter," he said carefully. It was not justice, but it was time. That night, Sarah returned to the living unit. Lyra ran to her and hugged her tightly. "You came back," Lyra said. "I promised," Sarah replied. As Lyra slept, Sarah sat by the window again. Jonah joined her, silent. "The galaxy saw this," he said.
"They'll talk."
Sarah nodded.
"Let them." Jonah glanced at her.
"You changed things." Sarah looked at her reflection in the glass. One eye.
"One arm? Still standing?" "No," she said. "You did." Outside, distant ships moved away. The Keth were gone for now, but the message remained. Humans had drawn a line, and they had drawn it beside her. Weeks passed after the Keth syndicate withdrew. The cargo yard slowly returned to its rhythm. Machines hummed, drones whirred, and workers moved among crates and tools. But the air was different now, charged with attention, curiosity, and a quiet respect that Syra had not felt in years. She walked among the stacks, Lyra beside her, holding her hand. The child had grown more confident after the attacks. She spoke freely now, laughing at small jokes and pointing out crates that Sayera had missed. Jonah watched them from the edge of the yard, hands crossed, noting every movement. Sayra had long since stopped feeling unworthy. She moved with purpose, using her experience, her ingenuity, and her remaining strength to make the yard run smoothly. The humans and other species who worked here had begun to notice that she was not just a survivor. She was an essential part of this operation. One afternoon, a human transport pilot approached Jonah and Sayera. His eyes flicked from Sayera to Lyra and back. "I heard what happened," he said. "That fight—" "You held your own?" Sayera shrugged, her usual quiet humility in place. "We survived," she said. "That is all that mattered." The pilot shook his head. "Surviving is one thing. Thriving is another. You."
You did both. Sarah looked down at Lyra, who was busy drawing symbols in the dust.
The child's small hand moved with confidence, a reflection of the safety and stability her mother had built. Sayera realized then that she had more than just survival. She had hope, for herself and for Lyra. Jonah joined them, resting a hand lightly on Sarah's shoulder. "The station talks about you now," he said. "Not just the humans, other species. You've shown them that strength comes in more ways than they expected." Sayera blinked. She had spent so many years being overlooked, being ignored, being dismissed as weak. And now she stood at the center of attention, not because of force or birthright, but because she had endured, and because a human had believed in her when no one else did. The next day, formal recognition came, not from any government, not from any syndicate, but from a coalition of independent traders and station authorities. A message broadcast across the local channels. Syra's actions, her defense of the yard, and her protection of her child were cited as examples of courage, skill, and ingenuity. Alien workers who once sneered at her now offered nods of respect. Some even asked her advice, carefully, quietly. She responded in her gentle way, guiding them without pride, teaching without boasting. Her injuries, her missing eye, her lost arm, no longer marked her as inferior. They marked her as someone who had faced horrors and emerged stronger. Jonah watched all of this with quiet satisfaction. He had hired her when no one else would. He had given her an opportunity, and she had exceeded even his highest expectations. He felt a warmth in his chest that he could not name. Perhaps pride, perhaps something more. One evening, as the sun of the station dipped low, casting long shadows across the yard, Jonah called Scifi to the central office. Lyra ran ahead, chattering happily about her day. She paused at the doorway, glancing back at her mother with trust shining in her wide eyes. Scifi entered, and Jonah gestured to a chair. "Sit," he said. He closed the door behind them.
Scifi,
"I've been thinking." Scifi tilted her head slightly. "About the yard?" "About everything," Jonah said. "You, Lyra, this place, the attack, the way you handled it all. You've shown something remarkable. Not just to me, but to everyone watching. Humans, we see strength differently. But the galaxy has seen it too." Sayara's hands rested on the table, quiet. "I did what I had to do, and I had help. You gave me that." Jonah shook his head. "You gave yourself that. I just recognized it. And I want you to know that this yard, this operation, it isn't just a place to work. It can be a home. For you. For Lyra, if you want it." Sayara felt a warmth spread through her chest. Words she had not thought she would hear again. Words that made the weight of years feel lighter. She looked at Jonah, at the honesty in his gaze. I want it," she said softly. "For Lyra. And for me." Jonah smiled, and it was not the small, polite smile he usually reserved for strangers. It was full, genuine, the kind that carried reassurance and promise. "Then it's yours. You stay here, safe. You stay here, respected. You stay here, with us." For the first time in years, Sayra felt a sense of belonging, a place where her child was safe, a place where her courage and intelligence mattered, a place where humans, and even the galaxy, could see what she had always known, that she was capable, strong, and deserving. The next few days passed peacefully. Sayara and Lyra settled into the living unit. Sayara trained a few new workers in logistics and safety. She taught them how to stabilize heavy crates with clever levers, how to spot hazards before they became accidents, how to respect one another in a workplace where differences had once meant dismissal. Other aliens began to approach cautiously at first. They asked questions. They offered small gestures of respect. Sayara responded with patience, slowly building bridges that had seemed impossible months before. She became a quiet example, not through intimidation, but through steady competence, courage, and care. One evening, Jonah approached the living unit as Sayara tucked Lyra into bed. The child's eyes were heavy, her small body curled up safely under the blanket. Sayara kissed her forehead. "Sleep well," she whispered. Jonah stood in the doorway, quietly. "She's growing up strong," he said. "Because of you." Sayara shook her head. "Because of both of us. You believed when no one else did." He stepped closer. "I believe now that believing is not enough."
we do? Together.
Sayara smiled faintly. Together, weeks turned into cycles, and the story of the one-eyed, one-armed alien mother spread across the local networks. She was no longer seen as broken. She was a symbol of resilience, of intelligence, and of courage. Lyra grew strong and curious, learning from her mother and the humans around her. Sayra taught her not to fear the galaxy, but to respect it and navigate it wisely. Then, one quiet evening, as the station lights shimmered against the dark void of space, Syra stood at the window of their living unit. Lyra slept soundly beside her. Jonah joined her, silent, sharing the quiet peace of the moment. Syra spoke softly. "Do you ever think about leaving? About exploring the stars?" Jonah shook his head. "Not anymore. This is where we belong." She smiled. "Then we are home." Jonah nodded. "Yes, and now the galaxy knows that humans stand by those who need it, and that those who are called weak can be the strongest of all." Syra turned back to the stars, her heart steady for the first time in years. The galaxy had watched her struggle. It had seen humans fight alongside her, and it had learned a lesson. Courage, resilience, and cleverness were not measured by arms, eyes, or strength, but by the choices one made, the people one protected, and the heart one carried. Syra knew the future was not certain. Threats might return, the galaxy might still be cruel. But she and her child would face it together, alongside the humans who had given them a chance when no one else would. And for the first time in a long time, she did not feel fear. She felt belonging. She felt respect. She felt pride, and she knew deep inside that no one, not the Keth, not anyone else, could take that away. She turned to Jonah, and for the first time, she spoke words that carried more than survival. They carried trust, gratitude, and the promise of a future. "We stay here with you." Jonah smiled, and together they watched Lyra sleep. The galaxy could wait. For now, they had each other, a home, and the quiet triumph of being truly seen and valued for who they were. The stars outside shimmered, distant but watching, as if acknowledging the lesson the galaxy would not soon forget. Humans fight for more than power. They fight for the worthy, the courageous, and those who refuse to give up. Syra, one-eyed, one-armed, a mother scarred by war, had survived. And now, finally, she thrived.